It's my pleasure to have been asked to introduce Rabab to all of you tonight. I'm going to start, as we've started all these sessions, by acknowledging where we are on the Wurundjeri lands of the Kulin Nation. But on this particular space, right, like at Melbourne University, we have, well, there's a register, and it's a register of heritage trees. And the heritage trees are the oldest thing here on this space. So if you walk out onto the Oval, the Melbourne University Sports Oval, I believe that's where the oldest trees are at Melbourne University, right? And they're Aboriginal trees. And they have a story, and I don't know what that story is. And sometimes we imagine that it's impossible.
It's you.
No, it's
me?
us together.
Okay. Explosive formulation, you know, of course. They're going to say terrorism.
Picking each other up. It's hard to imagine what unpicking colonisation looks like when you have kind of bricks and mortar universities built like Melbourne University, right? So I think in acknowledging that the land was never ceded and paying respects to this space, I mean, can we actually try and imagine? But the other really important thing, and this has been commented on throughout the conference for those of you who've been here either yesterday or today, is how groundbreaking, unusual, what a first to bring together the Palestinian and the Aboriginal communities here in Melbourne. And one of the things that makes that really unusual is there's no institutional backing, right, for either of those communities. So in Australia, there's no ability for people to do a Middle Eastern degree outside of, I think, Deakin University. You can't major in Middle Eastern studies. So where do you go? Where do you go and study about this stuff? And when you do study it, where are the jobs, right? How do we do that? And it's the same with our Aboriginal allies, right? And there's a beleaguered history here at Melbourne University about what happened to the Indigenous chair, right? So coming here and connecting is also thinking about how difficult it is without institutional backings to come here and connect, without money, right? With money that we apply for in grants, it's not given to us, it's not there for us, it's not there for us to draw on. We have to find it every time we want to do something, right? So I think that's one of the things that makes this event so extraordinary, because it's not an easy thing to do. It really is not an easy thing to do. Working on Palestine is not an easy thing to do either, and so I want to introduce Rabab. Rabab is one of the people who has been caught up in the machinations of the BDS campaign in the United States. The United States have a particularly chaotic legal system from my perspective as someone who studied law, and Rabab has been embattled with BDS suits, right, which is like Israel's lawfare. They don't care what the outcome is. They just want to tie up your time and exhaust your resources in being part of these suits. And so when people continue to talk for Palestine in these situations, they are making their lives difficult, right? But they're also making an ethical decision that they can't do anything else. And so that is also what is amazing about being here, that people who are here have made ethical decisions that they cannot do anything else, that we are here and we are in it, right? And we're not going to walk away. In fact, it's not possible to walk away. I'm going to read Rabab's bio so that I introduce her properly, because she's done many amazing things apart from making her life difficult. So Professor Rabab Abdulhadi was born and raised in Nablus in Palestine, and she's been a long-time feminist activist and scholar who's made significant contributions to the struggle for Palestinian self-determination and the well-being of Palestinian women. She's participated in numerous organisations dedicated to fighting for the rights of Arab and Arab American women. From 1982 to 1988, she was a director of political and international relations at the Middle East Research Centre in New York. Abdulhadi was instrumental in founding the Union of Palestinian Women's Association in North America during the First Intifada, or Palestinian uprising, that grew into 2,000 members and 29 chapters in the United States and Canada. Abdulhadi is also involved in a variety of coalition building projects that make links between diasporic communities living in the US communities of colour, and women of colour activisms. Rabab has published extensively for the academic and mainstream presses, writing on issues of nationalism, terrorism, race, ethnicity, and the experiences of the diasporic Arab communities. She's currently conducting research for the Gender and Sexuality Studies Centre in the Global South Project. Rabab was awarded the 2019 Alex Oda Memorial Award in recognition of her dedication and commitment to the Arab American community and the larger peace and justice community, and the 2019 Lucius Walker Award for her commitment to justice-centred scholarship and pedagogy. So Rabab tells us she's got really hundreds of slides, so without further ado, I'll pass on to her so she can get through them all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Masal khair, assalamu alaikum. I'll begin by honoring the indigenous Wurundjeri community and the people on whose land, the unceded land, we convene today. I'm very thankful and grateful to Susanna Henty and Gary Foley and to Nasser Shakhtour, who introduced us and got us together, as well as the organizers. I also want to salute people's power and people's struggles everywhere, from Chile to Ecuador to Lebanon, Palestine, and people who are struggling here against the takeover of Uluru Mountain, and the people in Mauna Kea, whom we're going to be meeting, who are actually receiving us on Sunday, and that's why I have to go fast here. So I was actually looking for some things that connect Palestine and indigeneity and indigenous people here. This is the only thing I found. I'm a bit troubled about it because it says Australia and it says Israel, Palestine, and I think people have heard about when you say Israel, Palestine, what is it that you exactly mean? Because Israel is physically on top of Palestine. So when people say, I'm going to go to Palestine, and people are going, and I think today one of the colleagues gave a paper about Samer, right? Sari Zananiri, and talked about what does it mean to go, and people say, what are you doing in Israel? And we all face this when we go across the border. Even if we go through Jordan, we're always asked, what is the purpose of your visit to Israel? And there's always a question about that, but it actually connotes a particular relationship that maybe we'll have a chance to talk about this. I've always wanted to visit, but I never wanted to come here without the invitation of indigenous people. And this is one of the issues that we also face a lot in Palestine. Maybe we can have time to discuss it. The question of tourism. I'm not even talking about solidarity tourism. I'm talking about tourism. Have passport, credit card, a little bit of money, and then you can travel. And we know who gets to get passports, right? So that's also another question. Who gets to travel and who doesn't get to travel? Last week, we were in Texas to participate in the 60th anniversary pilgrimage in Crystal City, which is an internment camp, incarceration camp for Japanese people who were, many of whom actually are Japanese Latin Americans, who were kidnapped from Latin America, renditioned in the United States, and remained there. And they, I'm sorry, oh, I'm supposed to come here, okay. And they were actually held up in ransom to negotiate for the US to negotiate with the Japanese government. It was near San Antonio, Texas. And the people, Chicano community, Mexican Americans who are actually in the Crystal City now, welcomed and apologized to Japanese people who were kidnapped, even though they had nothing to do with it. And they were farm workers who came to the place here to actually work, and they were segregated right before the Crystal City Japanese people were. Near San Antonio in San Antonio is a place called the Alamo, which you know here from the history, about how history gets manufactured and who tells stories and what stories get told. I'm just going to move here to get my notes. You can hear me? Yeah,
well,
sure.
We can mostly hear you moving.
Oh, is this better? So, what I want to talk about today is, actually let me go back here. I want to talk about, I was asked to speak about epistemologies of solidarities and what does it mean to actually engage in questions of indigeneity, Black-Palestinian solidarity, and so on. And so I was thinking about, let's talk about what do cultures of resistance mean? How do we create them? Are they exist right there? What does solidarity mean? And where do we find it? And why did I choose third wordism and the spirit of 68 for talking about Black-Palestinian solidarity? In order to do so, I want to raise questions about who tells the story, who ends up telling the narrative, whose narrative, on what basis, who is at the center of analysis, to what ends we're at a university, an academic university, and a lot of people make their livings of telling stories of others. So it also raises a question, what responsibility does scholar have towards the communities on whose lives we make our livings? And what does it mean for all of us? In terms of Palestine itself, I think there are a lot of questions that rise. What story about Palestine we're talking about? Is it a story about Palestinians being isolated? Many people say we're all alone. I don't agree with that. Is it about exceptionalizing Palestine? Palestine is only the last occupation, the only occupation, the worst thing that ever happened in history? Or is it a story about injustice that has context, specificity, historical context, but it's not really exceptional? And neither is the US, neither is Israel, neither is Australia. It's not exceptional, it's about justice and injustice, but particular aspects of justice and injustice. And what do we understand when we talk about it? So I was trying to actually struggle to think about what do I want to speak about today, because there is a lot, and actually prefer to talk to you about my project Teaching Palestine, which talks about oral histories, archival research, teaching Palestine pedagogical praxis and the visibility of justice. However, because many people do not know what's been happening to us at San Francisco State, I thought I will just share with you, this will be the story through which I hope, and I'm going to run through the slides very fast, okay, because it's really hard to select what to say and what not to say when you only have 45 minutes to share with people, and I will get faster. So I just wanted to begin to talk to you about that. So tonight, let me see if this mouse, okay, now the mouse is disappearing. Okay. Tonight, Palestinian students at San Francisco State are actually celebrating the Palestinian cultural mural honoring the late Professor Edward Said. This is the image of the original mural. And the reason the mural happened has actually a particular story, because SKINS, Student Council for Intertribal Nation, which is the indigenous student organization at San Francisco State. And if people do not know, San Francisco State also was the institution of Richard Oakes, who was one of the people who took over Alcatraz. And we're now commemorating the 50th anniversary for the American Indian movement. So SKINS were actually going to do a mural, and San Francisco itself is the home of murals. That's where Diego Rivera, Frida Kahlo, there's murals all over the Mission, which is the Chicano area before the gentrification. And I'm sure you're all aware of that and familiar with what gentrification means. They painted. So students came and said, they decided after 1968, when it was the longest student strike in the history of the United States, led by the Black Student Union and the Third World Liberation Front, and I'll talk why is that really important to think about that in terms of indigeneity, Black Palestinian solidarity, and solidarity among all people. They actually took over, and they created something called Cesar Chavez Student Center. Now, Cesar Chavez, who was a farm labor union organizer, had a lot of things to challenge. Okay, he never acknowledged the Filipino workers who worked with him. He was actually defended by a Yemeni worker, Nadia Fallah, who stood in front of him and died for him, was killed for him. And then Cesar Chavez actually was pro-Zionist. So in 2014, when Gaza was being attacked, yes, the Zionists put a big banner in Los Angeles quoting Cesar Chavez and saying, basically trying to delegitimize Palestinian struggle for independence and for self-determination. But the students at San Francisco State created the Cesar Chavez Student Center. And around the Student Center, we have a lot of murals. You'll see some of them as we go along. And except that SKINS, the indigenous student organization, never had a mural. So they were building the mural, so they turned to their Palestinian comrades and said, hey, why don't you have a mural? And the Palestinian students said, oh, that's a good idea. So this was the rendition of the mural. And this mural was created by Dr. Faya Kouawes, a Palestinian artist, and Dr. Susan Green, an anti-Zionist Jewish artist who actually has been part of the Break the Silence mural project, who used to go during the 1987 Intifada to Palestine and paint on the inside walls of Palestine because you couldn't paint outside. It was disallowed. And so they came together and they put the mural together and they put it up. The Zionists, who are very strong and very influential at San Francisco State, there is at least 25 years of fighting, objected to the little image of Hamdallah, right here, the cartoon. This cartoon character was threatening, okay, painted by the late Najil Ali, who was assassinated by Mossad in London, the Palestinian cartoonist, and he has a pen in one hand, going by Ghassan Kanafani's saying al-kalima al-bunduqiyya, that my word is my gun, and that's why all the Palestinian intellectuals were assassinated. And then in the second hand has a key, and on it, al-awda, return is written. And so the Zionist groups in San Francisco, very powerful, objected to that, and the university president of San Francisco State University actually thought that he was a psychological crisis and was walking around in bulletproof vest because he was afraid of a little cartoon character, and actually insisted. And this is the cartoon that they said was actually quite because Hamdallah threw a stone in the Intifada at the Israeli flag, and the flag was collapsing, and they pointed to this as a sign of anti-Semitism. So this has been going on and on. As a result, this is the mural. We had to remove Hamdallah and put the cactus in its place. Cactus is a sign of longevity. The thing is that if you look at the mural, it's very interesting because there are a lot of symbols that they could have objected to. They were not smart enough to object to more than two. So, and then we were actually worried about having the Hamdallah being part of the history. On the day of the inauguration of the mural, November 2nd, 2007, and we chose November 2nd because it's also close, I think it was Said's birthday, November 3rd or November 1st, but also it's the Balfour Declaration anniversary. So we did not want to do it on May 15th, Nakba, because May 15th the students will be on exams and nobody will be available. So we actually chose it specifically so it's in the middle of the semester, so we can actually do a lot of activities around it. And so all the students came, Palestinian students and all other students who were working with them, wearing t-shirts with Hamdallah on it, the day of the mural. Tonight they are celebrating, but the thing is really interesting, and this is what the students, this is actually, I took these pictures right before I left. They're choking all the time, and the university now that's becoming very neoliberal washes them right away. No, this is Malcolm X Plaza. But also now, everybody who expresses solidarity uses Hamdallah. So this is the April 17th Palestinian Prisoners' Day when they were on hunger strike. This is the poster put up by the Associated Student, which is the student government. Hamdallah again. Hamdallah again. The Associated Students, this is the Malcolm X mural, and this is the Cesar Chavez mural. And look out for a paper by one of my former students, I'm actually in his committee as well, who's comparing the Palestinian mural with the Malcolm X mural, because that's another story that I don't have time to tell. So this has been always a story around us. And what happened as a result of the blockage of the mural for 2 years is that SKINS, the indigenous mural, was the last mural to be installed at San Francisco State Student Center instead of being the first. I mean, this is, and it's a signal. It's exactly like what we're hearing today from the Zionist attacks, is that it's a signal to people who ally themselves with Justice in for Palestine. Don't touch Palestine. Because if you touch Palestine, the cause is going to be heavy. Of course, the allies, and I don't really like the term allies. I like to talk about joint struggle and justice and so on. But people who are in the same struggle actually have to question, because there is a huge campaign of silencing, of isolation, of what we call the new McCarthyism, as I will tell you. So this is, for example, and all of them, they have Islamophobic tint, because Islamophobia is very useful for Zionists and right-wingers. It's not moving now. Okay, yeah. So this was after, and all of them are connected with what happens in Palestine. So every single time there is a fight, there is a war, there is attacks by Israel against the Palestinians, somebody, this is the Zionists, want to express solidarity with the Palestinians and condemn Hamas, because they know what's best for the Palestinians. Of course, they're going to decide, which we talked about this yesterday and today, who speaks for whom, right? So this was the poster they put up, but they actually put up another one the day after. Throw shoes at Hamas flag and win prizes, and they put Shahadatain, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And if you look at the picture of the what they call suicide bombers, is that they make it look in black and white as if it's the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. One of the most, it's, okay, I don't know what I'm doing.
I think maybe the handheld.
Okay, Mash. I'll do that. I'm going to give you this.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
That one's, yeah.
All right. So, hello? Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. So this has been going on and on. But also the attacks, so there is a connection exactly with what's happening in Palestine, definitely. Secondly, there is definitely a very huge desperation on the part of the Zionists, and because we're winning. I mean, I really want to emphasize this. I would not be in it because I really don't want to spend my time fighting all the time and so on. As I said to somebody last night, I want to dance in the revolution. I believe in Ella. And Emma Goldman, who said, I want to dance in the revolution. This is why we're fighting. We're fighting for a better life for everybody. So we are winning, and they are very desperate, and they have tons of money and resources. And I'm saying I'm talking about different groups of the Israel lobby that actually come together. And they have connections with the government, as you know. Now we know even clearly, although Obama also was engage in that as well, and we can talk about why that is. But this is the messages they send, because they're really desperate. They're very desperate to do it, to basically silence us. So, and then the other aspect of it is to stop the institutionalization. So after 2008, 2009, that was at the beginning, the poster I just showed you, February, and that was immediately after we came back to school. And this is in the celebrating the mural. Omar Barghouti was going to speak. So again, a delegation of 10 Zionists, including 4 rabbis, come to meet with the university president and demand that the event be canceled. The university president was smart. He said, no, I'm not going to cancel it. But we were conducting searches for the program I founded, which they brought me to found, the Arab and Muslim Ethnicity and Diaspora Studies program. The president canceled the searches, sent me 2-line email in red. And then I was later told that in red means that he's flunking me. And he said in it that I said, thank you for supporting academic freedom. And he said, yes, but don't mistake my position as support for BDS, which singles out Israel and is anti-Semitic, and published a new statement on condemning those of us who are advocating for BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions, and canceled the searches. That's most importantly. Upon his retirement, he deleted the faculty lines from the budget. So we had an initial grant from 2007 to 2010, 2011. It dried out. By that time, since that time, I have been one-person faculty program. One person. We don't have staff. We don't have an operating budget. We don't have any other faculty. I have to go beg for lecturers, and we have amazing people in the community who are willing to work for very little money just to be able to support the program, because it's a program for the community. And the university has refused to reinstate the faculty lines, has refused to give us faculty a budget, has refused to give us staff, and so on. Part of it, we believe, is, and this is I will start now to say it, I'm suing the university in federal court and in state court over silencing, over trying to silence, not only silence Palestine on campus, trying to shut down the Ahmed Studies program and criminalize activism. Because this is, and we can talk about this forever and ever, all the things that they are coming up with. So the more we institutionalize, so they thought they will start this attack because at that time we were actually beginning to propose the minor academic program because there was academic moratorium on all academic programs at that time. The minute they lifted it, we started submitting courses. We have now 22 courses, which are all fulfill general education. We have now an academic minor and so on. But they thought that this way they will stop the program. I'm one person left. They will drive me out. They drive me crazy. I will get out. But we actually have a very strong community. And when I say community, I'm talking about community of justice. We have people who are coming from the 68 strikers, the people, the Black Student Union, Third World Liberation Front, to the Jewish Voice for Peace, to International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network, to the Japanese community, everybody who is actually really embracing us and really wants the program to build because they believe that it also satisfies what the 68 strike came up for, to decolonize the curriculum, to validate the lived experiences of communities, and to have self-determination, build a different relationship between the community and the university. There is always a relationship between the community and university, you know. Sometimes it's antagonistic, sometimes it's friendly. Sometimes the university takes advantage and exploits the community, and sometimes the university actually has this critical, dialectical relationship with the university, and this is what we want to do. We don't want to be the ones who are actually bestowing knowledge on everybody, because we don't. I mean, just even if we want to, it's not true. We don't. There is indigenous knowledges. There are knowledges that come from people who have struggled day in and day out. And we are also producers of knowledge. So if we don't produce knowledge for justice, why is it that, what's the purpose of us being at a public university? We could just go in a private university, sit in a cubicle, do whatever we want, you know, engage in a pissing contest with other scholars and so on. I mean, really. And this is what academics do all the time. We could do that, but we could also produce knowledge and also engage the community. And this is what we have been doing. So we challenge the universities, this elitist outlook. And San Francisco State is a public university, so it's actually supposed to be for the public. We have majority of our students who are the first in the heads of their household to go to college. We have many undocumented students. We have students who have, I know some of my students have 3 jobs. They are loaded with debt, financial aid, and so on. Some students come to me and said, I work from 8 in the morning till 10 at night. And the only time they will get access to the internet if they go to the library. So there is always this pressure from the university for us to lower our the education. And they always say, why you assign so much readings? You assign too much, you assign too many. As I said, well, I'm supposed to teach my students the same quality education as if I were teaching at a private university. Actually, I should do more, because they don't have access to counselors, they do not have access to resources that enable people. So the people who have the money, the legacies, the people who inherit and so on, are always ahead, always, always ahead. And even if we talk about 100,000 affirmative action programs, it still does not really close the gap. We know this day in and day out, because we teach and we're students and we live with people in the society and the community. So what we do is that we actually engage in something called open classrooms. So every once in a while, we have community elders come, we have people, scholars, everybody comes together and we have discussions, and I will show you some of them it's on the slides, the 200 slides. And, but we do that, we actually talk with the community, so people actually want to support it. So when they tried, they took away the faculty lines, they took away the budget, they took away the staff and so on. We continued building. It's very rough, but the more we build, the more we institutionalize, the harder the situation became. So in 2013, for example, we collaborated with people who are working on the prison support movement, critical resistance, California Coalition for Women Prisoners, the Freedom Archives, and so on. And we put together, there was a hunger strike in Palestinian prisons. There was also a hunger strike in Pelican Bay, where prisoners were actually protesting, being locked continuously in isolation. And there was a hunger strike in Guantanamo. And so we organized a big coalition. Actually, it's on our Facebook page. You can go look it up. The whole thing is there. All the sessions, everything. And we connected people together. And the more we build, the worse things got. So this was in May, right? And this was in May too. So, of course, supporters of Israel San Francisco Hillel, and so on. Of course, they did Malcolm X Plaza. They desecrating Malcolm X Plaza with Israeli flags and so on. And then they proceeded, many of them, including this group, Simon Wiesenthal Center. If anybody knows, it's the one that built supposedly the Museum of Tolerance on the land of Mamilla Cemetery by Palestinians in Jerusalem, and desecrated the bones. And I know how, what does this mean to all of us? Amcha, which is constantly waging one attack after, and they keep failing, and they keep doing it because they have a lot of resources and support. And part of the reason they did that is because our new university president comes in March and reaches out to us and comes and does a big event at the Arab Cultural and Community Center. And he says, we really want to do this. He points to me and said, why can't the professor take her students to Palestine? I said, I would love to. And he said, why do you want an institute? I said, give me the money, I'll be your man. Go ahead and do it. And he said, and yes, but then after his investiture, they whisked him to an all-paid trip to Israel. So come the fall, all these groups waged big attacks, also around the Palestinian mural. Actually, was out of town that time, but the students had a big event, and they always give tables to their fellow historical organizations. So Skins had a stencil that said, our heroes always killed colonizers, which is a stencil they've been using all the time against gentrification for 35 years. And the Zionists know it, because they have researchers that there is, well, we have no money, but they do. So they said, Edward Said calls Israel a colonial state. There is a stencil that says our heroes always killed colonizers. Therefore, Rabab Abdulhadi, Ahmed Studies Program, and General Union of Palestine students are engaged in the glorification of the murder of Jews. Doesn't make sense. You can just click within a day. We tried to stop the university president from issuing any statements, but he had just been to Israel. So he issued condemnation of anti-Semitism the same evening without any checking or some, did not speak about any of us or defense for 7 months while the mill is churning and attacking and so on. And then they went to the California legislators. And so in January, and he denied me the trip, the right to go to Lebanon to participate in a conference at AUB. In January, we were going to go, he denied, so we would continue with the trip to Palestine. We went on a delegation, and we began talking to An-Najah National University about a collaborative agreement, because the president wanted to have collaborative agreement in order to go and raise money from rich Arab states. I said, this is my connections. I have connections with Palestinian University. We've been collaborating with them. So we started, and my colleague next to me who's wearing the kafia, Joanne Barker, she is actually now the chair of the American Indian Studies Department. And so we met with An-Najah, and we emailed the president, we were going to meet with him and so on. And we met with 189 people, two people were Layla Khaled and Sheikh Ra'ed Salah. And Joanne was blogging all the time about it, and it was no problem because we're meeting with all Palestinians. And even some people the delegation didn't like. I said, we meet with everybody. You need to get here from all the Palestinians. Make up your mind. So you don't go back and people said you've been brainwashed or something. Here, discuss, debate, and so on. They picked on 2 people of the 189 and said, I am engaging terrorists. And of course, very interesting because the PFLP, Layla Khaled's group, is on the terrorist list of the State Department. And Sheikh Ra'ed Salah, Islamic movement. You don't even need to think about it. It's right ready-made. And they kept churning, and we gave the list to the university and so on. The university did, and they claimed that I am misusing public funds. I'm misusing university funds, which is troubling. A is that, on the basis that, do you have the right to use university funds in order to educate? Or are you supposed to use university funds to produce the kind of psychologists who were actually engaged in torture with the CIA? What is it that you use, or you build the Hoover Institute, or you do all this building weapons and so on? Why is it that we produce knowledge? So we said, no, we're going to use public funds, and every single time I'm going to apply for public funds. It's our right. This is the program, and our program actually says we are justice-centered program. It says it's actually been approved. It's been approved all the way from the college to the chancellor's office. It cannot be undone. It says justice-centered knowledge production program. It's very clear. We're not neutral about justice and injustice. And this is what the College of Ethnic Studies that came out of the 68 strike stands for. But they audited 2 audits of my travel, and then the group, AMCHA, wasn't satisfied with it. They went to the state controller. So the university ordered 5-year audit of my international travel. Not a single question about a missing receipt or a penny. All questions, why does she go to Palestine? I said, you know, you hired me as a Palestine studies scholar. I was, you know, I don't do something else. I don't study Sweden. I don't study Denmark. Palestine, that's why. I mean, it's not ambiguous. It's Palestine studies. That's my specialty. Where am I supposed to do my research? Where am I supposed to go? And so on. So they 5-year. And the university provost revoked my trip. I had university authorization to go to Palestine to actually work with a group named Al-Qaws. Do people know what Al-Qaws? Al-Qaws for Gender and Sexual Diversity. We were actually going to work on devising a discourse in Arabic on sexuality that's anti-colonial. That was the purpose. They canceled it, the university, and then they did this audit, and so on. And then when they found that I didn't do anything wrong, nobody came and said, I'm sorry. The story continued churning, and the university public relations website, for 2 years, reproduced all the garbage that was coming out of Zionist websites again and again and again. No defense. And we would say to them, you need to remove it. They said, this is the way the algorithm works. We said, isn't the algorithm created by a human being? Can the algorithm be reprogrammed? And it wasn't just about me. It was about everything, all issues that have to do with indigenous communities and communities of color. And so on, they refused. But during the trip, we actually met with Palestine. This is Samir Isawi's family, before the rest of the family was in prison. We went to Mamila. We met with the Afro-Palestinian, especially Ali Jidda, who's one of the long-term prisoners and so on. We met with Nabil al-Kurd, whose house in Sheikh Jarrah is being taken over by. And also right after this was, you remember 2014, Gaza happened in the summer. Right after that, we had the National Women's Studies Association conference in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And so we met with, this is Rafael Cancel Miranda. People do not know, he was a big-time leader of the nationalist movement with Albizu Campos. And so he has just released, so Sarsmiya Ode, the Palestinian leader, was being deported, so you know, he's holding this. And this is his house, by the way, this is his flag. This is not my flag. I don't actually have a flag. I just get flags whenever we need to go and give present. But this is his house. He has a flag on his house and so on. And we also met with people at various universities, and also we met with the group called Colectiva Feminista en Construcción. And this is the women who are there. And actually, they are the ones who are now leading the struggle in Puerto Rico against Promesa and actually forcing the governor to resign and so on. This is the New York Times even wrote about it. Okay, and this is, I'm just including this just so you know, this is another group called Young Lords Party, which was modeled after the Black Panther Party. And they were actually instrumental in getting the state to pay for the visits of people to the prisoners, because the visits are very costly, just like Palestine. They take a lot of money, a lot of time, and so on. So they actually, now the state pays for families of prisoners to go there. And this is their newspaper, El Palante, and this was featured in the newspaper. This is back in 67, 68. This is not something new. People did not just discover Palestine. There has been a very, very long time solidarity going on. And they named the little street in New York. But they had multiple marches in Puerto Rico in 2014. And as a result of that, when we proposed at the National Women's Studies Association that NWSA pass a resolution on BDS, there were some technical issues. You need to submit it a month earlier and so on. But it was the Puerto Rican comrades who stood up with the Palestinian flag, and we said we want to support Palestine. And actually that began to prepare for the following year. And next week we're going to have NWSA conference in San Francisco, and we are very happy. We're having a bunch of panels on 5 years since BDS. And it was really this, along with the browning of NWSA leadership and the democratization, because it used to be sort of one of the traditional groups. You know, you go against the grain, you build the women's movement, you take over women's studies and so on, and then little by little becomes very institutionalized, and then people work 9 to 5, or maybe if a crisis happens at 5:01, there's nobody to be seen. It's not like the movement. It's very different. It's academic. This is when they talk about the professionalizing the academy, right? Okay. So This is what happened in Puerto Rico, and now we have a resolution. Actually, we have very active. We have a section called Feminists for Justice for Palestine in the National Women's Studies Association. Please, people can join. But now the money has increased for the Zionist organization. This is a report that was published in 2015 that actually traces the money based on the 990 forms that are submitted to the IRS, which is Internal Revenue Service. And this is from all. This was actually very little. This is available online, The Business of Backlash, if you can look it up. But now it's much worse than that. Okay. In the same year, we hosted Haneen Ma'aiki of Al-Qaus. And so every single time we started building, we have the minor now. Now we have the 22 courses. Now we have the Memorandum of Understanding with An-Najah National University. 3 things institutionalized. If something happens to me, it's still going on. So now we start building, they start getting more upset. So in 2016, students and faculty organized for Defend and Advance Ethnic Studies. This is the Malcolm X Plaza, because the university was defunding the College of Ethnic Studies. The number one demand was actually to fund the Ahmed Studies program. The number one demand. Every time the students go meet with the university, they say, would you compromise? They said, no. We want the faculty lines back. We want budget. We want operating budget and staff. And so the Palestinian students are very active. This is where we actually had the first meeting. This is one of the leaders. His name is Terry Collins. He was member of the Central Committee of the Black Panther Party in the Bay Area, as well as Black Student Union and the Third World Liberation Front. And he was speaking all the time about Palestine. This is during this. This is some of our students. And they were so conscious that they actually issued statements in support of Palestinian teachers. Right? This was the ethnic studies. And so at the same time, we had a delegation. This is the first U.S. prisoner solidarity delegation to Palestine. This is some of the former prisoners. Claude on here, he was Freedom Archives, like 14 years underground. Laura Whitehorn, 14 years in prison. Hank Jones, Panthers, 7 years in prison. And they have the Jericho movement. That's why they took a picture next to. So we went to Palestine. And one of the things that they done before is that they collected statements from different prisoners in the U.S., long-term prisoners. They wrote it up. And we joined with a conference with an Institute for Women's Studies at Birzeit University. And they did this. We sent the statement to Birzeit, and they printed 500 copies in English and Arabic, translated it. So every time we go and meet with freed prisoners, we can give it to them. So this was an amazing sign of solidarity when we were going there. So we were continuing. This is our meeting in, with Birzeit. You see the conference there. And it was very interesting because the conference was co-organized with the Institute for Women's Studies. So some people who think about conventional women's studies, like, what are women doing with this? Why are they organizing around settler colonialism? Why are they organizing about prisoners and so on? It takes a long to explain, but this is the prisoners meeting with, this is also meeting with families of prisoners. Here, this is the family of Muhammad Abu Khdair, the young Palestinian kid from Jerusalem who was kidnapped and made to drink kerosene and set on fire in the summer of July 2nd, I think, 2014. We then went to An-Najah National University. We had the conference with An-Najah. And we actually, every single professor who spoke was a former prisoner. Every single professor. And this is, and people say, why are you concerned? There has not been a single commencement for any Palestinian university that was complete. Not a single one. Every commencement has students in prison or dead. Every single, imagine this, not a single one. This is horrifying. So when people talk about, even when they talk about BDS, they think we're doing this stuff in the West and in the US and so on. But this is something, this is about people's lives. This is about the right of education for students, for faculty, for staff, for people who actually entitled and deserve to live like everyone else. And we should not have to even make that justification. So this is completely gets lost in this noise pollution. This is with Laura, with former prisoner. This is Emery Douglas. People know who Emery Douglas is. He is an editor. He was an editor of the Black Panther artist editors. And he's sitting here talking to Ali Jadda. And he's still active. They're trying. We visited al-Hiran, which is a Palestinian village in Naqab that is being taken over in order to build a Jewish settlement called Hiran by the Jewish National Fund, which is friends with top leaders at the university. And we have the public records. So we visited with Ad-Damir. We met with the leadership of the Boycott National Committee. You can see Omar and others. So all of this stuff is happening. What do the Zionists do? They bring the racist mayor of occupied Jerusalem to campus, who's in San Francisco to raise money for AIPAC, for the Israel lobby. They bring him to campus, and they provoke Palestinian students. This is in the midst of all these battles going on. They provoke Palestinian students, say, what are you going to do? So Palestinian students talk to the rest of the historical organization, League of Filipino Students, MECHA, RASA, Black Student Union, everybody. They're always working together. They all coordinate with each other. And they all go to the event to protest. And in the protest, they start chanting, chanting, chanting. So what happens to this great Nir Barakat, who thinks that he might be the next prime minister of Israel, something he has dreams of grandeur, could not say a word. He had to sit in the corner and talk with the officials of the university, and he was completely insulted. Of course, all the officials were there. The university police were tons of people there, and it's very interesting because they did not charge the organizers, which is in a group outside of the university, any money. However, in 2011, when we brought Angela Davis and members of the indigenous and feminist delegation to speak at San Francisco State on the mural, they charged us $1,400 to come and bring dogs to sniff the hole. So the Zionists don't call and say there is a bomb threat and mess up the event, because there might not be a bomb, but if they say it, we have to evacuate. So they made us pay $1,400, but they did not charge the Zionists any money. Anyway, the students protested from all sorts of backgrounds and so on. And of course, everything went berserk. They were placed on the Canary Mission list. Two of the Palestinians, this is him. And behind him, actually, in some one of other pictures, is the vice president of the university. Okay, and who's friends with the Jewish National Fund. So they basically place me, I don't, and actually this is very interesting because I put this during the Arab revolutions because people thought that there will be a third Palestinian Intifada. And I was going to take it down because there wasn't a third Palestinian Intifada. But since they have been attacking me, if I had taken it down, they would score a victory. So it's still there. For me, it's outdated, but it's still there because I cannot remove it. I mean, I have to keep it, right? And so what they did with the students, they put their names, so they actually received sexual threats. Two fierce Palestinian women, leaders, young, they called their jobs to get them to be fired. And the university police did not do any. This is Laxi. They also put other students like Sophia, Latina, on it. And they went all over that this is, and the students protested. They went and protested at the commencement when the university was doing their gala event. They dropped the banner. Then the university hired an investigator to find out what's going on. And the investigator went investigate and came out with a conclusion on September 7, 2016, that there was no violence involved. It was not anti-Jewish. The students went to protest. The minute Nir Barakat left, they left. And nothing, the only thing they did wrong was to use a bullhorn. Bullhorn, regular, not one of the big sound systems, because you have to have something portable. So they violated the university's rules on time, place, and manner. The university keeps changing them. By using a bullhorn, and they actually sanctioned the Palestinian students. I sat there in their kangaroo trial, dressing them down and so on. And the university came out with a new rule when Nir Barakat was coming next year, that you are not allowed human voices above the 75 decibels. Because the students now weren't going to get a bullhorn, so they were going to chant. They had a big coalition and so on. So they actually prevented. Now it's prohibited to go above 75 decibels. They have other things. On the same day, Campus Watch, which is founded by Daniel Pipes, who's a leading Islamophobe, but also he actually wrote a very interesting article in April this year that he was a student at Harvard. And he used to go to students' anti-war protests and take pictures of students. So he actually was bragging that he was spying on his fellow students and that he was such a conservative at the time and so on. They started a new petition against the collaboration with An-Najah because we have now An-Najah passed. In the process, we also passed the Edward Said Scholarship. So now we have Edward Said Scholarship. We have 4 things already. So they did this, and they demanded that the university cancel it, except, how am I doing for time? I'm good? Okay. So the university did not make the public statement that we support collaborations with other universities. This is the only problem. This is the only one that's being attacked. They did not do support and so on. And this is very interesting, because all the attacks on An-Najah, they put boys. Now, anybody who knows Palestinian universities knows that overwhelming majority of the student body are women. An-Najah has 64%, but it's not convenient to put, because if you put men, you can perpetuate the war on terror, Islamophobic discourse, that Arab and Muslim men are bloodthirsty terrorists, misogynists, etc., etc. So all the time they put these pictures, and we actually got the statistic this year that 64% of the yeah, and this continues, by the way. In 6 weeks, David Horowitz, who is another Islamophobe, leading Islamophobe, he started a big campaign, and he put pictures of all the professors. Here's Judith Butler, Rajesh Hadi. This is all over the university. And they put one in my university, 26 places. And this is the posters. This is the poster they put about our students. This is the same students who received death threats and so on. Look. Jew Nazi. This is the Malcolm X Plaza again. Nonetheless, we continued. The students organized the mural event. This is the beautiful look. Look how many people are attending. So this was 2016. That's when Trump got elected. So the students decide that it's really, really important, and the union, our faculty union is amazing, to organize Know Your Rights Fair. So people know what your rights are. ICE, the immigration is going to come take undocumented students. Everybody is feeling threatened. So they organized, we had teach-ins, and we organized it. And the Hillel, which is a Zionist group, this is what Hillel stands for, asked to have a table very late by one of their leaders who was a graduate of the David Project, one of the main Zionist organizations. And the organizer said, it's too late, and besides, we're not going to allow people who look like ICE come and scare our students. They said, oh, you're anti-Jewish. And this was in the lawsuit. I'll tell you in a minute about it. So the students said, how is it anti-Jewish when we had Jewish Voice for Peace? They said, oh, Jewish Voice for Peace, fake Jews. They're not real Jews. Yeah. I mean, this is really in a lawsuit, right? Okay. And so now they, again, in May, they put another set of posters, because we're still moving, despite all the deprivation and so on. We're building, we're insisted to build. And it's very interesting that they call her loved by SJP and JVP and so on. But we continued, and we participated in this big parade for Oscar Lopez, who had just been released, Puerto Rican prisoner for a very long time. So, and actually, we were worried because the organizers of the parade, it's a very big one in New York, especially the corporate ones, did not want any noise. So they were going to actually disinvite him. And there was a big movement. So he participated. The people with Oscar Lopez pushed the Palestinian Arab contingent to the front. They said, this is like their organizer. This is Alejandro, one of the organizers there. And what's wrong? What's the issue with Oscar Lopez is that Oscar Lopez is friends with Claude Marx, who was on the prisoner delegation. So now Campus Watch and all the Zionist groups started churning emails that we are taking to Palestine one of the people who are the most wanted list of the FBI. Yeah, and he's running a Freedom Archive now. He's running an archive, but anyway. That's not enough. So in June, they actually started this lawsuit against the university and against me. And they waged it on June 19th. I did not hear about it from the university. I saw it on tweets by Campus Watch, right? And the lawsuit is very interesting, that it actually claims something that the Zionists have claimed since 2013. This woman, Tammy Benjamin, who's the Amcha group, actually wrote an article saying that anti-Semitism is inherent in groups that build ethnic studies, attributes it to 1968, because 1968 actually was the time when Black Student Union and Third World Liberation Front were actually exhibiting what Black indigenous Palestinian solidarity will be about. They were anti-imperialist, they refused US empire, they rejected settler colonialism, they demanded, the reason they called it Third World Front is because they thought of people in the US, indigenous communities and communities as people of the Third World, unified together against imperialism, right? And so this was very, and so on the first page of the lawsuit, 1968 strike, College of Ethnic Studies, Ahmed Studies, me, General Union of Palestine Studies, and we are all inherently, and they claimed that this conference we organized on the 40th anniversary of the College of Ethnic Studies, and look at it, They said that this was the spirit of Bandung, revolution in the air. We had Yuriko Chiyama, who was a very well-known Japanese activist in whose arms Malcolm X died. And she was a very, very big, and she was actually in one of the internment camps. We had all of these things in this, and we actually had 2 Jewish panels. But they claimed that that was, and then you can see Yuriko Chiyama there, Che Guevara with, and there's the picture of the strike and so on. So and it's unfounded. And this is kind of what I want to expand a little bit about it. And this is 3 weeks ago, we were in North Carolina, so we visited where SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, was founded, and actually organized the lunch counters at Woolworth boycott. They began with the boycott, because Israel always claims that it's the only country that's being boycotted, and Zionists always claim we're the only unique people in the world who are boycotting, and people are engaging in boycott all the time. So this is also the university, Shaw University, and this is a statue that Shaw University created for the SNCC. Okay. Oh, yeah. And also, this is the place, Greensboro, this place where the people from black workers, went to stand up to the KKK, and they were massacred. And finally, they were able to get a plan for them. We tried, but we weren't able, and I don't know if people know about it. But there is a Lumbi indigenous group that actually stood up to the KKK and defeated them and kicked them out of the community. And this history is not known. And the reason the KKK was actually targeting the Lumbi community is because this is 1958, because in 1954, the United States Supreme Court decided in Brown versus Board of Ed that segregation is illegal. So they went and targeted, so people in the indigenous community said, okay, we will fight. And they fought and they defeated them. So this is not a very well-known history. The known history about North Carolina is the Trail of Tears, where indigenous people were displaced and were kicked off their land, which is 1831, just like Palestinian Nakba, not very different. Okay, so we go back to San Francisco. Then into September 21st, Horowitz is not happy. They put a new set of posters all over the university. The university does nothing. Now, this is the Office of General Union of Palestine Students. They displayed all the posters that they have gathered and so on. And now the university says that they actually call Horowitz and say to him, give us heads up when you want to put up posters. Because now the university is becoming much more liberal, neoliberal. The university, even though it's a public university, receives 2/3 of its funding from private donors, which means it's not subject to transparent rules. We do not know where the money comes, where the money goes. It goes all behind the scenes and so on. And to add insult to injury, the university president in March, this is the one, okay, issued a statement welcoming Zionists to campus. I wrote a statement to the university. I said to my dear colleagues, this is a problem. This is an insult to Arabs, Muslims, Palestinians, community of justice, and our Jewish sisters and brothers for whom Israel doesn't speak. You need to retract it and so on. So the university, what they did is actually, as a result, genuine Palestine students, black resident students, multiple organizations, Jewish Voice for Peace, before even they took the anti-Zionist position nationally, they took it up in seven. And we have a new group on campus called Jews Against Zionism. Now, a new student group saying, no, you don't own Jewishness, you don't just speak for Jews. And they put this is their graphic. Nothing wrong with it. I'm anti-Zionist, I'm not anti-Jewish. So don't call me anti-Semitic. Free Palestine. The Zionist groups claim that this is hateful. They launched a whole big campaign. They emailed me, the students emailed me, giving me a deadline to respond to them by a certain time. I'm like, and they started the big campaign. The campaign, and this was at the same time we started teaching Palestine. We had started teaching Palestine in 2016 to actually, because the 50th anniversary of 67 occupation, 70th anniversary of Nakba, 100th anniversary of Balfour were coming up. And we wanted, and the 50th anniversary of the College of Ethnic Studies, so we wanted to bring histories and think about how do we tell stories? How do we shift the discourse? So actually we can talk about Zionism and so on. How do things connect with each other? We did not include stuff about the kidnapping of indigenous children, putting them in boarding schools, but we did it about the US and Canada because we were familiar with that. We knew about that. And we were just going to go to Palestine. So then they started a big campaign, okay, about the Palestinian promote terror, the Palestinian universities. And they had just kidnapped the President Council of Birzeit University. So they said they were proud of it and so on. We nonetheless made it to Palestine. And one of our colleagues actually keynoted was Professor Robin Kelly, whose group actually was involved in the Greensboro massacre. And he traveled at his own expense to Palestine, even though we knew that maybe he and I will be stopped because we are in BDS. And actually, this is how we met Nadia bin Youssef, because she was advising us on what we should do. So we had plan B and plan C, one for Jordan, one for Lebanon if they turn us back. We had all these plans and so on. We got in. We got into Palestine. And we did this conference with Birzeit, Birzeit Institute for Women's Studies, Ibrahim Abdulhadi Institute, and then we did the one with, and this is, okay, I'm going to go very fast. We went to Abu Jihad Museum for Prisoners' Affairs at Al-Quds University, and this is really great because it all has effects of Palestinian prisoners, that including notes that prisoners of certain political organizations wrote, like what they thought about the meetings, how they smuggled things out. I mean, it's an amazing, if anybody can actually go and have like a year of research and so on, it's incredible, amazing. That, so of course, Al-Quds University has the apartheid wall cutting through it. Right? This is some of the stuff of the museum. And this is the original poster from the campaign we did in 2013. They had gotten it and put it up. As part of the delegation. This guy, Dr. Fahed, he is the director. When he went to prison, he didn't know how to read or write. And he said, I wanted to write a letter to my father. So my organization, he was with Fatah, told him, gave him an order, you have to learn. So he said, of course, I started learning. Now he has a PhD. He got out of prison, he earned his MA, he has a PhD, and he's the one who's directing this. Okay, at the same time, of course, you know that the stuff is happening at the university. So now the Zionists organize a big thing about welcoming Zionists. And we are going to Al-Najah. The next conference is at the Najah National University. This is a workshop we did with the students. And we went to Yafa. This is a teacher, Ustad Yusuf Asfour. We visited the old city of Nablus. People may know about this is the Shu'bi family, 8 members of which were killed in the 2001 Israeli invasion. They actually, personnel carrier drove over them and killed them all. This is a mural, talk about, art for resistance, right? But then the university president and the chancellor both issued condemnation and said, I'm hateful, I'm anti-Jewish, and so on. And I started receiving more hate mail. So this is one example, okay? And I received an email from the provost threatening me with disciplinary measures if I did not take the Facebook page. Because that kid wearing the kafiyya saying, I'm anti-Zionist, that's hateful. So, yeah, so I wrote her in the middle of the delegation. We ended the delegation with a meeting with Haneen Zu'bi in Nazareth. And then we went on March 30th to Sakhnin, where we laid the wreath at the at the martyrs' graves for the Day of the Land. And actually, we were driving, and what's going on in Gaza of the Great March of Return was happening too. So it actually raises questions about how do you make sense of it? How do you even take the stuff back? And how are you able to explain it, what's going on? You have to engage in a lot of discussion about that. This is the Day of the Land. We came back and we organized a big event on feminist, transnational feminism with some of the colleagues from NWSA. A big event about Nakba, connecting 1492, which is supposed to be the time when somebody got funded by Catholic kings misusing Christianity and got lost, ended up in something he called West Indies, but supposed to have discovered things. And so we connected with indigenous groups and also with Jews of color. This is Professor Aurora Levine Morales, who is Puerto Rican Jewish, who actually spoke about this. We connected to talk about what does it mean and what does it mean to fund colonial gestures and how the 1492, the defeat of Andalusia, was actually beginning of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. That this is not something recent. This goes back to that era and so on. So it's all online, by the way, you can find it. Okay. And we had a conference, the university, this is the union. course, they continued. I'm just going to rush. But in the summer, the judge said that he's going to dismiss the case. I should just say with the case, they had a law firm of almost 1,000 lawyers. Yeah. And I had 2 pro bono lawyers, 2 movement lawyers, and we defeated them. We defeated them big time, dismissed with prejudice, a judge, federal judge, who is very respected in the Bay Area. That was in the summer, but in the fall. And then meanwhile, we discovered this Nazi student in my class on Palestine. Look. So we go to the university, we tell them the students are really scared. The university says, if you feel threatened, let us know. We say, we're really feeling threatened. Nothing happens. Some of the students put up a poster. The university immediately takes down the poster. They didn't do the same with Horowitz. They take down the posters right away. But the Zionists say that I'm actually giving an A to the Nazi student who sympathizes with Palestine. Look at this. He sympathizes. And we had interviews with all universities, and we said we do not want anybody in Palestine Solidarity who does not believe in the indivisibility of justice. It was very clear. They looked at the same newspaper and they churned their garbage. Okay, we had and of course they continued. We continued building. We built this event with the Japanese community. We have open classroom. We extended support for Ilhan Omar, who is being attacked. We organized Teaching Palestine conference with South Africa that the university gave me authorization, then took it away. Why? Because in February, the provost of the university sent all of us a letter to the faculty saying we need to be aware of religious holidays. This is the grave of Joe Slovo, if people know who Joe Slovo is. Was the Secretary General of the South African Communist Party and the leader of the Umkhonto Sizwe, the armed wing of the ANC. And this was in Soweto. Yeah. So she sent us, we need to respect religious holidays, but she named Israel Independence Day as religious holiday for Jews. Yeah. And she's a scholar of the Crusades, but she did not remember Eid al-Fitr and Ramadan, which is celebrated by almost 2 billion Muslims. So we made the campaign against her, went to the Senate and so on. So as a result, I was punished by revoking my travel authorization to South Africa. The latest accusation, there is a lot. The latest things that have happened is that on June 30th this year, there was the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall uprising. And a group called Queer Liberation March decided that you cannot have corporate presence, you cannot have police in uniform. This is something for the movement. So we joined with them. And this is Jewish Voice for Peace. This is Queers Against Israeli Apartheid. They put this banner up. They said this is, by the way, a button from 1982, from Jews Against the Israeli Massacre in Lebanon. Trans Jews march in it, and so on. But they thought that this was a hateful message. So they put all of this stuff, yeah. They put all of this, I put it on my Facebook, and it was shared on Ahmed informal Facebook page. They said it's a hateful message because it said Zionism equals racism, boycott, divest, sanctions, but they left out the 2 lines. Silence equals death. Palestine is a queer issue. Because when you say something like this, people say, yeah, of course. She is only talking about Arabs, Muslims, and Palestinians, but not about everybody. So now this is going on. They're asking the university, actually not just San Francisco State, it's California State University, to investigate me and punish me for violating property rights of the university by using the name of San Francisco State University. And everybody does that. I'm not the only one who does it. But this is, and they keep saying that I'm spreading hate. But this is also the same thing, from Kashmir to Palestine, occupation is a crime. I mean, we post all of this stuff on our Facebook, because also we have no money to actually tape and then edit and post again. We just do it directly. So this is as a result, and then there was a whole thing on Fox and Friends with this show that Trump likes. I received a letter in my university office. This is the letter. I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to look at it, because I don't want to read it to you. So the university provost sends me a message, calls it hate mail. And she said, if you feel threatened, feel free to call campus security. I said, did you read it? I mean, and this is, our offices. I mean, this is where our students go and so on. So we actually, myself, General Palestine students, Muslim Student Association, Muslim Women Student Association, all of us had to be very careful on campus. Because also in October with the Nazi, when the Nazi was on campus, also women in the Muslim Women Student Association go to pray in the prayer room that they shared with Muslim Student Association. And they find a man naked from the waist down standing on the prayer rug. They call the campus doesn't pay attention. They see the guy somewhere, they videotape him, they told the campus, we have the videotape, we don't need it. They see him coming out of a building, walking side by side with university police, not handcuffed or anything. We go and talk to the Dean of Equity and say, what's going on? I mean, this is really serious. We have the Nazi, we have all of these issues. She checks with the police, she says, the police combed the building. The Cesar Chavez Student Center. I said, did they go to the Muslim Student Association? No. Why not? That's the first place you're supposed to go. We still don't know what happened. We still don't know what's going on, but we do know that Muslim women who are wearing the hijab are constantly harassed. And when they go to the university police, they are told this is freedom of speech issue. You cannot do anything about it. This is what we're dealing with. Now we continue, because in Constitution Day we have big panels by the California Scholars for Academic Freedom, Jewish Voice for Peace. We organize Day of Remembrance with the Japanese that I mentioned. Now we have a new campaign by Stand With Us. I gave a lecture at the University of California, Los Angeles on Islamophobia, where I connected white supremacy with Zionism. The lecture is online, okay? And I was harassed by the students. Now they said that the students, I harassed them. They harass me, it's online. It's actually available online that they're interrupting me and I'm waiting for them to talk and so on. So now, Stand With Us, which is another Zionist organization, filed a complaint against UCLA with the Department of Education. Why is that? Because today the Department of Education in the United States is headed by Betty DeVos, one of the most right-wing charter schools. She does not support public education, has already denied a whole lot of stuff around LGBT rights, everything. I mean, they're really right-wing. And her man in charge of civil rights, and none other than Kenneth Marcus, the founder of the Brandeis Center, which is one of the main Zionist organizations that has gone after Students for Justice in Palestine, faculty, and so on. And so they feel this is their time because Trump is bidding also doing the same thing with them. So they have alliances between Christian Zionists, Christian United for Israel, sign all the statements, by the way. They're all over the statements. The Zionists, they get money from Sheldon Adelson, the casino mogul, and from the Ministry of Strategic Affairs in Israel, and so on. They feel this is their time. And this is the same complaint that they filed against the Middle East Consortium at University of North Carolina and Duke University. They are continuing, but we are also continuing. We've defeated them in federal. They cannot come back. And by the way, they get on TV and they say this is a groundbreaking lawsuit. And we say, yeah, it's groundbreaking. We defeated you. It's groundbreaking for us, not for you. But they keep lying and they keep coming on TV and doing this because they feel this is the time. And this is really the message. This is the morale of the story, is that Israel cannot anymore play the PR game. They have tons of money invested in Hasbara. They have all this support and so on. They can't. They actually are failing. They're failing to crush Palestinians after over 100 years of Balfour, which is, colonial rule. Nobody gave them a mandate. And they failed. They failed. At the very least, Palestinians are staying put. They fail when they steal the olives. They fail because we're standing. We all the people who are fighting are standing. Their supporters and apologists are unable to cover up for them. What do they do? What do bullies do when they feel defeated? They become more bullies. They try to crush you. And this is what they're trying to do. But I'm, for one, like all the scholars here and all our scholars in the US who have been targeted day in and day out, from Stephen Salaita, who was fired, he doesn't have a livelihood, to many of the students who've been harassed on campus and so on. With all the money, we're still standing. Actually, there is also, and they claim, this is one of the biggest losses, is that they claim to own Jewishness. We say you don't. Sorry. You represent some of the Jews, but you don't represent all the Jews. Actually, people who came out with solutions for anti-Semitism before Zionism. Marx wrote his essay on the Jewish questions way before the Zionists came to exist, okay? So they can actually claim it. They can try to intimidate everybody and so on, but that doesn't work. It doesn't work because more and more people, we even have cracks in the US Congress today. That's actually, it's not what we need. This is not what happened during the Vietnam War that actually made the war impossible, but along with the Vietnamese struggle, of course. But there is changes going on. Majority of people who are being polled day after day are saying no, including Jewish people. I'm talking about communities of color, indigenous communities have historically been with Palestine. This has always been the case. But even Jewish people are speaking up more. Historically, there has never been a consensus, but people are speaking up more and being heard, including young people on campuses who half of the students for justice in Palestine are Jewish. And they're saying, no, you don't speak for us, you don't represent us. They go to Birthright and defect and go out and write articles about it and so on. They are losing. They are losing the battle now, but they are getting nastier because they are very desperate to do it so. But we are all determined because if we believe that our job is to educate, and our job is to educate for justice, and our job is inside and outside the university is the same. We're not schizophrenic, behave something differently in our research and something else in our lives and so on, that we are accountable to our communities. There is no force in hell that's going to be defeating us. So we are not going to be silenced. And this is my narrative.